Hey guys, Jason here for TheChartGuys, taking a look at our regular coronavirus names. Hope you're all doing well. We're starting with APT. We're going to start on the hourly time frame because yesterday we talked all about this descending hourly trend and the 10 psychological key level that we needed to hold, and that definitely broke. And we're going to figure out where that broke, but we can see here double bottom and then break. 9-10 as our current support, and then now we have 10 acting as a resistance. So this former support becomes a resistance, and it's a pretty basic concept in technical analysis, but we see it over and over again. So that is the struggle for the bulls right now on the hourly time frame. If they can get back over top of that, then they have the possibility of changing the hourly trend, but now we have to change the hourly trend and get above $10 psychological. Until then, we're going to be looking for lower highs and lower lows on the hourly time frame. Let's jump to the 5-minute time frame and see when we broke that key level. So we can see early on this morning, we had a little bit of a bounce right off 10, got almost nowhere on that, and then crashed right through, got oversold on the 5-minute time frame. Relatively weak bounce we rejected from our yellow line, that's our EMA 8, and that is a good indicator that there is no strength on the part of the bulls. A good bounce I find generally goes to my EMA 12 on the 5-minute time frame, and then I can look at to scale out and see what happens after that. But if we fail to get there, and in this case, again, rejected from our EMA 8, it looks relatively weak. We got a 999 rejection, and we got a 1001 rejection, so that 10 psychological level is still very, very apparent there. Bulls were not able to take advantage of cracking it by a penny, so it's just going to be counting as a double top. Still looking at $10 psychological resistance going into tomorrow. Let's go back to our daily time frame because we're going to look at our daily levels now. Because we are so far oversold, or I should not say oversold, we are in bear territory. Our next support is 833, and low of day today 910. All bears all the way. The only thing that I would be looking for at this point would be a 4-hour lower high. Let's zoom in and see what that would look like. So in order to do that, we got to get over top of our 10 psychological, and then anything under 1085 is going to be a 4-hour lower high. So even if bulls are optimistic and they break that level, they still have a lot of work to do to change a lot of trends. LAKE on the daily time frame, we'll start there. We had an inside bar. We had an inside bar bear break, so we'll take a look at that. 1609 was the key level. Bears are now in full control, and we have daily support way down at 1338. The only hope we have is a little bit of an oversold bounce that may have occurred at some point, given this little bit of a lower wick, but bears are definitely in control. And right now on the daily time frame, we're going to be looking for a lower high at some point, and we'll see if we get how close we get to that 1338 level. So the inside bar, go back and watch yesterday's video if you didn't watch that, and it talks a little bit about what the inside bar setup is and why it's important. Here we can see that 4-hour trend change, lower highs, lower lows, bears in control. Not oversold, but getting there. 41.75 is our 4-hour RSI, and on the hourly time frame, we are stair-stepping, so it's going to be similar. 37.30. And let's go look at that inside bar bear break. Here we are early on in the morning. We actually broke it pretty early. Didn't see much follow through, so the actual support was just below 1609, and we can see that we had support at 1605, so there was a little bit of a bid support there, and then against that cracked. And then we see that big drop and downside continuation, changing the 5-minute trend into the end of the day. So 5-minute bulls are in control, but overall pretty bearish on most time frames. CODX, bears continue to show their strength, and now we see a break of 832. That was a key support. Now we're looking at low a day from today, and then we have 557 support as well. So something I haven't mentioned this week, but all of these names, at least originally, were directly correlated to fear. That's the reason they jumped up so high, and because we are now getting used to the idea of living with coronavirus and the societal impacts that it has, unless these individual names have their own key fundamental reasons for seeing upside, we're going to expect to see continued downside. 4-hour time frame, we see a strong 4-hour downtrend. We lost the potential for 4-hour equilibrium, and in fact we lost, well, you could make an argument, I guess. I'm looking at this big whipsaw action between this low, this high, this higher low, lower high, and where we would have expected to see a continuation into a nice equilibrium, we just have seen a slow fade and a loss of a key support. So a 4-hour downtrend is in place, and the hourly downtrend is very, very apparent. Right now, we need anything under 970 is going to be a lower high on the hourly time frame. So strong hourly downtrend. Next key support, way down here in the range of 550, 59. VIR on the daily time frame likewise seeing some weakness, but we still have a couple of key supports that we can look for on the daily time frame. The big one, 27.41, we have bears in control, and I don't really see too much of a tightening range yet on the daily time frame, but we've got a little bit of back and forth. So if bulls can turn things around, they do have a lot of work to do to get back up to the 54 resistance. So there's going to be some work has to get done here. On the 4-hour time frame, we see the lower highs, lower lows. So nice and casual approach. The bears are taking 37.30 RSI, not getting close to oversold. Comfortable where it is. And on the hourly time frame, we're also seeing those rejections from that EMA 26 and EMA 12 pretty consistent right now. And we've got a lot of work to do to change that trend as well. RSI is happy at 36.26. 27.41 is our key support. NVAX, a rare bull. So let's take a look at that. Big gap up today. We have a new area of resistance, but we're seeing a lot of profit taking. So even though bulls had some ambition today and a little bit of a push to the upside, ultimately bears have won the day, and we see a little bit of an oversold bounce likely here at this lower wick. So when I look at this chart, I'm paying less attention to the daily time frame, and I'm focusing mostly on my hourly 15-minute, 5-minute price action, because there's no real clarity here. With the lack of clarity on the daily time frame, we can only focus on those quick intraday scalps. We had an inside bar, but we gapped above it, so that tends to just nullify inside bars. So what we're going to do in the short term is look at our high and low range from this candlestick and just focus in primarily on the hourly time frame. And here we can see that pre-market run up, we can see that open and that big drop, and we have our support from the low of day. And if we can get our little machine working, 12.18 is that key support. 15-minute time frame. Not a lot of clarity either, a little bit of a tightening range, but ultimately not a real lack of direction everywhere except the 5-minute time frame. 12.18 is our key support. AHPI on the daily. We had another inside bar bear break. We opened just below. Looks like we tried to back test that. I'm going to go right to the 5-minute to explore that a little bit. So here's that open. We drop right down. Bulls try to answer back. Still rejected from that area, 16.39. And we have a rejection from a former support now acting as resistance. We almost form a wedge, a very weak break into a 5-minute sideways trend. Current support of the daily time frame is going to be at 12.80. Bears are in control of pretty much everything at this point. I don't know if they got enough energy to sustain a run into tomorrow with a 4-hour downtrend, hourly downtrend, hourly bulls trying to get over EMA 8, still rejecting from that because we just don't have a very strong trend. 15-minute uptrend, 5-minute uptrend, hourly downtrend, key resistance, 16.39. TDOC. See, nice continuation from yesterday's daily push. We opened higher, but we're seeing a lot of volatility, so this is where I start to look for trend changes. We have overall daily uptrend. Now, I'm not expecting a trend to just develop out of nowhere based solely on this candlestick, but what I'm looking at is the new surge and presence of the bears, where otherwise we've seen pretty bullish days. So that suggests to me that there may be a momentum shift happening sometime in the future. We got a lot of work to do. Our last daily high or low is 132.07, and our low of day support is currently going to be right there at 148.48. On the 4-hour time frame, we are still seeing 4-hour higher lows, so this needs to hold. 148.48 is our key support. Again, low of day. 132.07 is going to be the daily support, and on the hourly, we can see that we have lost the hourly uptrend, and we're looking for a new lower low under 148.48. If we manage to maintain a higher low over that level, we have the possibility of forming up an hourly equilibrium, but there's still a lot of work to do before we'll start looking at that as a possible scenario. RHB on the daily time frame, nice little rejection from our EMA 8. Bears still overall in charge of the daily time frame, and we have a lot of work to do to change that story. Right now, $40 is going to be the resistance, well, $40.02. 4-hour time frame, a little bit choppy sideways action, so we're going to zoom right in on the hourly. We can see we're just trading sideways between a couple of key ranges. And if we open up in this area tomorrow, that is what we need to focus on. 37.50, 36.67. Jumping to the 15-minute time frame, you can see that trading range, and I don't think there's too much more to say about RHHBY. Might still pop in the last 5 minutes of the day, but ultimately doesn't change the story or the narrative too much. It's just a little bit of almost a painted close there on the close of RHHBY. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Let's take a look at IBIO on the daily time frame. Nice little indecision candlestick. Volume is really tapering off on this guy. We only have low of day support from March 17th, which is 96 cents, and we're inching our way down there. If we go to the 4-hour time frame, we can see that we are almost, well, it's not a descending triangle because we don't really have confirmed support. We've only touched that level once, but we are in a 4-hour downtrend heading in that direction. And on the hourly time frame, we are also seeing that with a little bit more clarity, lower highs, lower lows. And what we can try to do is go and draw ourselves a little trend and see how this fits the majority of the price action. Drawing on the tops of my greens, that correlates pretty well with these two touches. And then what I got to do is just draw a parallel line and try to encompass most of the action that I'm seeing. If I'm getting about 95-98% of the price action inside my trend, I consider that valid. We don't have a lot of support here, but if we are bulls, ultimately what we want to see is an hourly trend change and a break of that trend line. And that's really the only sort of clarity that I see on IBIO. Someone asked about MRNA on the weekly time frame on one of the YouTube comments, and they wanted to know, are we still in a weekly uptrend? And yes, we're technically in a weekly uptrend. We haven't lost the weekly uptrend because we're still establishing weekly higher lows. Our last weekly level was really right here, 1768. We managed to just hold over top of that level, and we are still setting weekly higher lows. And that means the bottoms of our candlesticks are still getting higher. So what we're going to look for is a loss of those successive higher lows, and that is going to result in a little bit more of the consolidation. So on the weekly, we can see that we have some consolidation in the form of almost an equilibrium, and it's not enough to call it an equilibrium on the weekly time frame. We need to zoom in and take a look at what's happening, but there is a tightening range. We've got an inside bar week so far. Granted, it's only Tuesday, so we'll see what happens, but we've got quite a big range to work with here. If we go to the daily time frame, we can see that volatility kicking in. Bears are currently in control of the 4-hour and the hourly time frame. No real change in sight because we're taking that time to drop down nice and consistently. We lost 26.25, 26.20 support, came up, back tested it as a resistance, continuing that overall downtrend. Bears are in control. So what we need to do is break over 26.25, see if we can't reclaim that former support, now resistance, as a new support again, establish maybe a little head and shoulders, and see if we can't change this daily trend. That's it. A lot of technicals, a lot of cool plays, and a lot of good developments of the charts that we had talked about yesterday. Some beautiful inside bar bear breaks, some nice patterns, a lot of key resistance and support plays. Just good stuff all around. I hope you're enjoying this volatility. If you're one of the people who are struggling with that volatility and you want to learn more about charts, I want to teach you. There's a lot of other people in TheChartGuys who want to teach you. Ask me a question on YouTube. Happy to answer. And good luck out there. Take care, guys.